You're right to be scared of the dark. You know that feeling you get when the covers are pulled up to your face? When you're lying in the dark with your own eyes open but too afraid to look. That feeling makes your eyes open but too afraid to look. That feeling makes you a child again, holding your breath while you say to yourself, if I don't look, maybe it'll go away. If you muster your courage to stare back at the watcher in the dark, it'll be gone. If you're lucky, I'm not. Let me tell you about when my life fell apart. It was 1982. I was in the kitchen. Mom said that there was no such thing as monsters. I can hear it now, clear as day. You're too old for that crap, she spoke over her shoulders from the stove. I've been having nightmares, and she couldn't keep walking up in the middle of the night. Work started early and ended late. That's kid stuff, Johnny. I saw the dark circles under her eyes and the way her face slashed with fragile. She was working double shifts to make ends meet, and it was wearing her thin as a coin passed through too many hands. I need to rest, she said. She wasn't telling me as much as she was pleading, and even as a kid, I could hear the difference. That made my part in it worse. The pan rattled across the burner, and I could smell the sausages broiling. It was Sunday, so breakfast was more than Wonder bread and the peanut butter. Granddad sat in the kitchen, too. He was drinking his coffee from an off-white mug with a clipped rim. He had a cigarette in his other hand, and when he wasn't taking a drag, his hand was on the table next to his GPS, like he was guarding them. Granddad called them good people cigarettes. His nose was almost as red as Marlboro's. He couldn't afford once he's been laid off. He coughed, his face blue with the effort, but as soon as he could breathe again, the cigarette was back in his mouth. Mom dropped two links on the plate from the silly pan. When I was your age, I was already working odd jobs to help out. I didn't know what to say, so I kept my mouth shut. And I wasn't keeping my folks up half the night. Granddad rested me. He knows. Tammy, give it a rest. He looked at me, and I could see that he was asking for assurance. I was just a kid, but also, somehow, the fulcrum on which the family troubles pivoted. Maybe that's not entirely true, but it seemed that way to me. I was a mouth to feed, and not keeping in the ends from meeting. Those dark circles, that tired slab that pulled at her mouth, one way or another, life was using Mom up by stealing her sleep. I was tight in grip, shame heavily, and it bent me just then. Granddad noticed me slide in my chair. Johnny's just stock up. He'll be all right. He didn't look so sure, but he gave me a nod anyway. Right? Yeah, I knew I was lying. So did Mom, but she kept her peace and dropped two dollops of scrambled eggs next to the link of my plate. Hide cotton. That was my granddad said about sausage and eggs. I didn't feel it, though, not that morning. He used a fork to cut. the links into bits and mix everything together. I usually like mine separate, and I made sure no eggs touched sausage, but I watched them meet in the middle as they were best friends. I had lost my appetite somewhere so far off that even the smell of Jimmy Dean couldn't call it back. He watched me scrolling my sausage around, took a long pull from his cigarette, and winked. His eyes were playful, conspiratorial even. Mom joined us with a plate of her own. Shit, she said suddenly. I forgot the toast. In a moment, she was back with a small plate, stacked with 5 or 6 slices of white bread, a bit more burned than brown. Eat up, she said. I did one joyless bite at a time. I caught it. That's what Sunday's morning meant. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon was a lazy affair at my house, and this was one no exception. Granddad leafed, leafed through old magazines, nodding off now and then. The pages were dog-eared and he'd read the stories before, but he didn't mind. Mom washed her hair in the bathroom sink and took a long nap. I went outside while Mom slept. It was sunny and hot, and I decided to poke around in the shed. It was under an old maple and dapple with the shade and sun in a summer camouflage. The shed was never locked because there was nothing worth stealing. I opened the door and stepped in. It smelled like the rust and oil and old wood, and the light that shone through its only window spotlight the dance and the swirl of the dust in the air. I poked around a bit, looking for something, anything that might take my mind off my mom. I had a file in my one hand and I was wearing away at the one head of the bolts attached to a beat-up vise to the work table. Each pull gave a raspy sound and the grunt of shiny new steel. One push carried my knuckles too far, and I scraped them across the sharp edge of the vise. It peeled the skin back and the blood reeled up against the curl. I stuck my hand in my mouth and tasted the methyl. My knuckles stung, and I winced as I ran my tongue over the flap of skin. Then I saw it. In the corner of my eye, I could just make out a shadow, blacker than the black against which it stood. 2 long arms with long hands and long fingers that looked more like claws to me. It was just my imagination. No, it's not, John. My father's voice. My eyes were on the woodbench, but I focused on the shadow without looking. It grew, stretching in the dark, raising those long-fingered hands. My breath, my breath caught. I dropped the file and it curled on the wood floor. I forgot about my knuckle. The hair on my arm stood up and I could feel my heart skipping, starting faster, pumping, trying to escape my chest. I was too scared to look at it directly. I thought about running for the door, but the shadow was right there, just beside it. It had it had long arms. I'll never make it. I edged into the light from the window, trying my best not to look. I thought that maybe if I just ignore it, it'll go away. But you tell yourself that, too, don't you? Late at night. Something in me knew better. Something in you does it too, I bet. It was moving, inching towards the mostly closed door. I was pretending not to look, but I took another sideways step into the light. I could feel the sun on out my skin in the light. The dark, the darkness deepened. I couldn't, I couldn't make out the shadow anymore, but I knew it was there. It's there, all right, Johnny. Don't you doubt it. Now the voice was Granddad's. The door closed with a thud. My chest ached the effort of keeping my breath in check. I had to do something. I grabbed a hammer, a big, heavy one with a painted red wooden handle. You stay away from me, I yelled. I mean it. You just. My words died in my throat. It was there. I could see it now. Blacker than black, getting darker every second. It was creepy. It was creeping closer. Suddenly it was like a rails. My hand shook and I lowered my lip began to quiver. White hot panic burned into my mind, and every thought but run was smoke in its weight. But I was frozen, and my feet wouldn't budge. It stopped at the edge of the light. It slid around the sides, staying just beyond the patch of the white on the floor. It was close, really close. The light was small, but it was everything. Mom Mom wasn't much on church, and she never taught me to pray. But I prayed my heart out that that passing cloud didn't happen. But just then, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't holding my breath. I was trying to take one, and it wouldn't come. We stood like there for a long time, just staring. When the hammer got heavy and my arm ached, but I didn't care. But I didn't dare lower my guard. It was trying to get behind me when the door shed open. What the hell are you doing? It was my mom. She knows the wet patch on my jeans. What the hell, John? I mean, I stood there, lip quivering, hammer held high, until she took me by the arm and dragged me out into the yard and the sunlight and into the house. She was angry about my wet jeans, but I didn't care. Mom was making dinner in the kitchen. Granddad and I were living in the living room. He was on the couch. I was on the floor, sitting Indian style. He turned off the TV. I wasn't watching it. I wasn't watching it anyway. What's wrong, Johnny? He took a long pull and breathed out through his nose. His face was wintering in blue smokes. I eyed to the window. The sun was setting, and it would be dark soon. Nothing, I said, trying to guess how long the light would hold, watching the shadow grow across the front yard, and talk man to man. I joined him on the couch, and he crushed the nub of his cigarette into the ashtray. It was brown glass, made look like a amber. What's wrong? He asked, stroking my hair. Nothing, I said. He could see that it was something and the drowsing stopped. He caught my eye with a long sideways look of the milky brown eye. Some men think they should keep their troubles to themselves. Not me. A trouble a trouble shared to its is a trouble least, I say. He paused for a breath or two, and I could hear how bad his lungs were. What's your trouble, Johnny? In the shed. Well, it was too ridiculous to even say. Kid stuff. It was my mom's voice in my head. You're too old for that crap. What about the shed? Said Grandpa. Well, you saw something, didn't you? I nodded. I thought you might. The nightmare. He coughed one of the really bad ones that doubled him over and brought tears to his eyes. They're not just nightmares, Johnny. He wiped the eyes, and his voice was high and tight and wheezy. Some folks are more sensitive. The nightmares let you know when it's around. That got my attention like a snap. What do you mean? He recovered. He, he had recovered, and his hand wandered over to a pack of GPS. Well, some folks see things other folks can't or won't. He had my eye again, and I could feel his intensity. You follow me. He finished a cigarette out of the pack and held it and unlit, rolling, rolling it in his fingers. I guess, I said. You're at that age now. Now, that age when you either you stop seeing it or you start seeing it more than you like. The way he said it quickened the hair on my back of my neck. Even Fossil was alive and tingling. The shadow. My voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, he said. I was stunned. It was like I know a secret that no one else can share, and suddenly I found out that everyone already knew. Granddad knew. He'd seen it too, as real as the shadow had been. This was impossible to believe. You see it too? I asked. He looked at the cigarette in his hand, then back to me. Yeah. Really? I asked. He nodded a slow motion of his head. You be careful, Johnny, he said. Some things lose their power when you can't I found out then that this wasn't one of them. It was way worse after he admitted it. It was dangerous. Way worse. I was about to ask more when Mom came in. She didn't want to hear it. And I knew it, I knew it, and I couldn't bear to make it harder on her. Dinner, she said. Later, Granddad said. We'll talk about it later. Mom had a double shift the next day and went to bed early. Me and Granddad waited until we were sure she was asleep. I watched the windows like a hawk. It was full dark, and the hair on my arms was at attention. He took one last glance at the hall. Then his voice as low as a cricket's belly, he said, Johnny, you got to watch out now. Hearing him gave me the shivers. Once it knows you can see it, it'll come for me, won't it? I asked, barely able to get the words out. He was having the same trouble, so he nodded. Millions, hell, billions of parents tell their kids that there's nothing in the dark that not there in the light. You've done it yourself, haven't you? You repeat it until you believe it, or nearly so. And you hope your kids believe it too. But maybe it's you who need to believe. Maybe it's you who need the consolations. Maybe because you know deep down that there are things that go bump over in the night. I knew it, and so did Granddad. I'm gonna watch over you tonight. You'll be safe as houses, I promise. That helped a little, but I'm not always going to be here. I shook my head, but he continued. And when I'm not, you need to keep watch yourself. You hear me? Yeah. The words was more breath than speech. Good. When nightmares come so on heavy, that's a sign it's around. Why does it? I'm not sure. Maybe it feeds on us at night, stealing a little bit of you when you're asleep. He lit a new cigarette from the old one and puffed it into life. I think it comes for those who can see it, and maybe it ignores them that can't or won't. You know what I mean. I did. Even if Mom saw it, she would have convinced herself that she had it. I said so, and he nodded. Yeah, yeah. His tone told me that he wanted to be a little more like Mom. What can I do? I mean, just stay safe. The light, Johnny. Stay in the light. Neither of us could bear to talk about it anymore. There are things you can say in the daylight that you won't dare in the dark. Instead, we watch Horton Heroes and Stanford and Son with the volume down low and so that as not to wake Mom. Normally we have been laughing that night, but we didn't even crack a smile. It was getting late and Granddad told me to get ready for bed. I had the covers up like a shield. The lamp was on and my room was fairly well lit. The overhead was busted, but it had always been busted and there was a problem with the writing. Granddad was in the corner in the ballet chair. He was wearing his red and black Paris shirt with the sleeves rolled up and had a big silver rimmed sportsman with him. The kind that took two D-cell batteries. Something about the chrome reminded me of knight's sword. I felt it a lot better with him there. I'll watch over you, he said. I tucked my head under in the blankets. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see it. I was tired and scared, but my eyes were heavy. At some point, I fell asleep. I woke up suddenly. Granddad was still in the corner, but his flashlight was on. He was shining it under the bed. I sat up and then he saw that I was awake. His face was pale as fresh paint and the railing shook in his head. I could hear the batteries rattle. Don't get out of the bed, he said. What? Why? I rubbed my eyes. I was still grumbling. It's under the bed, Johnny. I was wide open then. Don't get out of the bed, he repeated. He wasn't asking. I jumped to my feet, the shattered mattress slugging under my weight. What do you mean? It's under the fucking bed. Don't move. I was 10 years old and I never heard Granddad so much as say shit. This was bad. Real bad. I couldn't stay on the bed. No way. No how. So I ran a step or two, the end of the mattress, and I jumped for all I had worth. No! Granddad yelled. I drove far and too fast and hit the window in the mid-air, flattering the blinds and tangling in them, wrapping around them from the wall when I fell backwards towards the bed. Towards the bed. Granddad was off the chair, and an old man flashed, but my hand was falling into the shadow. Even even as I tried to stop it, upside down on the floor, I could see it too, flat as a doormat in the shadow under the bed. I snatched my hand to my chest, and as it reached for me, not even a hairbreadth separated fingers from mine. It was cold and misty, like my hand in the freezer to get ice. Jesus, Johnny, I'm okay, I said. Finding my feet, I hopped up and down like it was Christmas morning. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. I was yelling, but I didn't know it. Granddad didn't either, but we figured it out when Mom burst through the door. What the hell? She yelled, her bathrobe trailing behind her like a cape. John? Mac? What the hell is going on? Her hands were on her hips and her face was as red as Granddad's nose. She pointed a finger at Granddad. If it had to be a gun, he would have been dead. You out! He gave me one long, pitiful look that said, "What can I do?" Mom stood her ground like a titan, and he tunneled there in the hall past her, his head down, defeated, worried, afraid. Then it was my turn. You in bed. But now. What was I supposed to say? That there was a monster under my bed. That I needed Granddad to keep watch. Haven't your kids said the same thing? I picked up the red gun and leaped into my bed. Not the plunge, not jump, leap like Bruce fucking Jenner in the Olympus. When I get home, John, that that treat needed to consolation. She turned and slammed the door, but not before she switched off the lamp. I sat with the flashlight on, and I knew it wouldn't be enough. I was on the track tied to the rails, and the train was coming, and there was no hero waiting just off screen to run in and save the day. It was really dark in there, and there wasn't even a light peeking under the door. It was in its element. I could hear Mom giving it to Granddad in the kitchen down the hall, but I couldn't concentrate on the words. My heart was at least as loud as her cursing, and my mouth felt like it never knew a slip of water. I had the rifle in one hand like a spear, and I was shining the light at the edge of my bed, moving frantically from the side to that, from the headboard to my feet, and back again. It was waiting, savoring my fear. You know how it does that, don't you? That's when Mom came in. In an instant before the bolt blew up, she saw it and her mouth dropped open and her eyes grew just like the, just like they did on Saturday morning cartoons. I heard her take a loud breath, the substance of a scream filling her lungs, but it was black now, and there was a rush of air, and she was gone. She was gone, gone. I was screaming, tearing at the doorknob, running down the hall, trying towards the light. My sock fell slid on the kitchen floor. I smashed into the cabinets, hard enough to send my head spinning. The red wax stared across the tried yellow room. Granddad overturned the table. He saw something too, because it was a few minutes before I could get to him, deceive me, or answer my friendly question. It had been long behind me in the hall all the way to the edge of the kitchen. We waited there till morning. That sounded crazy, I know it, but we did. Even then, every light in the house was on as we searched my room for Mom. Of course, we never found her. Folks think she ran out, just like Dad did. That's the double shift, and Bills and me, the Granddad, were just too much in the end. We knew better. I knew better. That was 1982, a long time ago. Granddad and me had a hard time of it, and soon enough I was working on those odd jobs to make ends meet. They never really did, not even close. Granddad passed before too long, and I got more help from the state and foster care. The Willows weren't so bad, and the Freds and Fred and Rita did as well as by me as they could. I sold a house when I turned 18. I got stacks of bolts in the kitchen closet, 16 watts, 100 watts, Verla, you name it. My lights are all riveted to the master switch in each room, too. One flick and everything lit. I won't have it. I won't have it any other way. When the nightmares come, and they do come, I keep the lights on all night. The habit has been replaced by medley rechargeable, and I kept it at Q being by the bed, just in case every room has a few lamps and a overhead the winter like new. I want you to know that when you get that terrible feeling, that feeling of being watched from the dark, you're not alone. When you pull the blankets up like a shield and side your head down and pull your feet up, I do too. When you feel it watching from the dark, or pull back a cold hand dangling over the side of the bed, when you feel like a kid and try to tell yourself there's nothing there but your imagination, even though you know there's something there. There is. Kids go missing all the time, don't they? And sometimes they die in their sleeps, even though there's nothing wrong with them. And sometimes parents just get up and go when they had enough. But maybe, just maybe, not all those kids ran away. And maybe them that died see something before they do. And sometimes, just sometimes, those parents didn't run off when it got hard. And you're right to be afraid of the dark and what's in it.